this video, we're going to show you how to make this beautiful machine embroidered Christmas wreath. It turns out gorgeous. Make sure to come to our website and download the pattern. Now I'm going to do my leaves, and I've hooped my large hoop with 2 layers of water soluble interfacing. I just like 2 because when I'm trimming sometimes I'll slip and cut 1 layer. Then I'm going to put this in the machine and do the first stage of applique, which is just a single stitch of the shapes, and that will locate that to this hoop. Then I've made a sandwich, which is 2 pieces of fabric wrong sides together and batting, thin batting in between, and it's large enough to cover those leaves. Then I'll place it over the leaves, single stitch again, trim around those shapes. Now we finished trimming it and put it back in the machine and did the second stage of the applique, which is a zigzag. And now we are ready to do the satin stitch. So finish satin stitching, trim as much of the water soluble interfacing away as we can, and then these leaves will be finished. Now I've taken my large hoop again and I did 2 layers of water soluble interfacing. I like to, it's inexpensive, and that way when I'm trimming it, if I slip, I'm okay. Then I've called out my poinsettia and I've done the first stage of applique, which is a single stitch, and that will locate it on my hoop. Then I've made a sandwich, which is 2 pieces of fabric wrong sides together, thin polyester bonding, batting in between, and I spray adhesived it, and it's large enough to cover my flowers. Then I'm going to place it over my flowers so that all of that is covered, and I'll single stitch again so that I know where to trim, and then I'll trim it. When you're trimming around these, it's really easy to first just cut the outside scoop, then with your scissors come in to cut the V's. And I cut pretty close to the single stitch. Then the next stage of the applique is a zigzag, and then a satin stitch that will also sew really pretty vein down each petal, and then we'll cut as much of this interfacing away as we can, soak them, and because it was sandwiched, both sides will have a beautiful, the fabric showing. And I did the same colored thread in the bottom and the top, since both sides will show. I've hooped background fabric after spray adhesing some interfacing to the back. Put a little bit more here on my right, your left, but it's my right. Just works out better with the pattern that way. Then I put it in the machine and it will stitch. The pattern will just stitch a part of the arc of the wreath and these sprigs. And the reason it's only a part is so that it will fit in a standard large hoop, and you don't need a jumbo hoop. This is like a 7 by 11. Then print out the pattern that comes with, hold it up to the window and align these sprigs, and then I put a little pencil dot in each corner, and I've also continued penciling in the arc. Then with my rotary cutter I can place 1/4 inch past those dots and cut so that I have seam allowances. And I'll do that, make 4 and put 2 together so the arc matches, and 2 together again, put the 4 together, and then the center will be done. Then I'll put the border on. Now I've added my border, 5.5, 6 inches. Pattern comes with a beautiful design for quilting the border, and also for the inside that will quilt around these sprigs. And the inside, each of these squares is hooped twice, 1 here and 1 here. It comes with 3 little markings to match up the stem, so it'll quilt out nice. Now when I sandwiched this quilt, I did a much larger backing and batting, and I spray adhesive the whole thing so that when I'm hooping and unhooping, I don't have to worry about the back. There'll be no puckers. And this extra really comes in handy when you're hooping that border to quilt, that you've got all of this to grab onto, where if I cut it right on the edge, then it wouldn't grab that. So I really like that. And then next I'll start with dimensional pieces. I've we'll cut bias strip about 1.5 inches and fold it wrong sides together. Then I'm going to place it on the raw edges on the inside of the ring, and so I sew a little bit less than 1/4 inch because I like a wider stem, but whatever you decide, make sure you're consistent through the whole thing so that your stem will be consistent width. Once it's sewn, then because it's bias, it will stretch and it will fold over the raw edges and just make this beautiful stem. Then I'll blind stitch that fold to the quilt top. We've placed our leaves and sewn down the middle to attach them, and they look really cool. They get that dimension. Then we've put our berries on, and how these berries are done is you cut the circle that's in the pattern, and then with a double thread you hand baste around the outer edge, and then just stuff them as full as you can. That's the trick, is to have them be really, really full. And then pull it closed. And then what I'm going to do is sew across the opening so that it'll stay tight and closed. And then once that's done, I'll put the opening down next to the quilt top, press it down a little bit, and right where the berry meets the quilt top, I'll do a little blind stitch around the outside to secure that berry. Okay, let me show you how we're going to finish our flowers and put the flowers on. When the flower was stitched, it has 2 sizes, and then it's stitched a circle around the middle. You want to trim out the middle, not coming to the stitches. The stitches are what will hold all the layers together. And then with a double needle threaded, you come in and do a stitch so that the valley pokes up, okay? And then the center of the petal is going to go down, and you want that to be uniform. And so when you pull it, it will all just have a pucker in the middle of each leaf. And then I'm going to go across, stitch it across till it's really secure, and I'll do that to 2 of them, and then I'll stack them. And I like to stack them and sew them together so that the points are in the middle of the other points. Then this pattern has this little unit that is stitched on water soluble. It's just stitching, but once the water soluble interfacing dissolves, you have this little unit here. And what you're going to do is fold it in half again, and then in the middle of that flower, after we've stacked them, you put it right in the middle and whip stitch the base to the flower. And sometimes there's a little bit of starch from the water soluble interfacing that's left in there. It makes them so you can stage them where you want them. But then that just turns out adorable. Then when we apply them to the quilt, we have 2 in between each berry set, like that. And you can just go through the middle and attach it and leave all of these very dimensional, or hold it back a little bit and stitch each petal to the quilt top. You could do that too if you want a little flatter look, like that. And then I'm going to sew a little berry in between them so that you get your eye going around and it breaks up the print on the poinsettias and it looks beautiful. So that's how we'll bring this up to a finished quilt, and we'll show you what it looks like when it's done. It's finished. It turns out beautiful. When it's done, it will become a family heirloom. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and come to our website and download it. I think you'll enjoy it.